I'm reminded of another story of a gal who came to New York to make her life. And she was determined, this was years ago when getting married was the first objective of any young woman. She was determined to find a husband. She went to every party she was invited to. She made a lot of friends. She made every possible effort. At the end of 10 years, was actually the 10th anniversary of her coming to New York. She went to the theater alone, not expecting anything. And during intermission, as she was walking up the aisle, a man was walking down and their eyes met. She knew and he knew right away. They were meant for each other. They were married
Without
and
knowing
they were very
any
happy.
details about him.
Well, they just, and
Yeah.
that's the subconscious. You really have to let the subconscious take charge when it comes to picking a mate, a partner. Yeah.
And many people don't. I think they ignore it and they, go with the more logical.
I think one problem is infatuation sort of addles the brain. And then, of course, a lot of people are very ambitious, so they want to pick someone they think was going to help them with their career.
Right.
Someone
not what
with
matters.
money or connections.
As far as, we talked a little bit about vocation, but what about picking the right, if you have several job offers or several different careers that you're thinking of, but you just don't know,
Yeah, well, I think the best thing, again, is to let your subconscious take hold. And I suggest doing what I always do when I start writing, whether it's an article or a book. Sit down with a pen and paper and write down whatever comes to mind. Don't think, don't deliberate.
like a stream of consciousness.
Just a stream of consciousness, and put
Yeah.
anything, no matter how ridiculous it sounds. And the first time you do it, you're going to read over and say, well, this is a lot of crap, I'm going to throw this in the wastebasket. But if you keep on doing it, eventually you'll get some kernels of ideas that you can pursue. The other thing I suggest is you're never going to find what you want to do sitting in your bedroom on a rocking chair, knitting or reading a book. You really have to go out and do things, even if they're not particularly significant. You need a lot of new experiences. And again, talking about alertness, you want to, whenever you're in a crowd, surrounded by people, perk up your listening apparatus and start. I'll give you an example of that. My daughter, for the first 10 years after she graduated from college, went from one sort of mediocre job to another. She went to a nursery and cut flowers. She worked in a pizza parlor. She was, as a matter of fact, she was a chef at a 4-star restaurant first, before she was fired because she couldn't cook. And nothing. At one point, when she was, I think this was when she was working at a pizza parlor, she went out for a break, coffee break. She was in Starbucks in line, and the gal in front of her was talking to the young man who was making her a latte. She was in the landscape architecture program at the local university. She was complaining. I don't like this, I don't like that. And Pam, my daughter, said to herself, everything she says she doesn't like the program, I know I would like. She applied, she was accepted, she got her degree in landscape architecture, and she's working in the field. If she hadn't been alert to what was going on around her, she never would have heard that conversation.
Or if she realized that she could be different and not, not agree with the negative point of view on that.
That's right.
She was
That's
open
right.
to her
She
own.
was looking at the other side. Somehow the negative point of view brought out the positive point of view for her.
I also think in my experience in life, it's been if I don't have a preconceived notion about something and I kind of just let it have a free, open mind about it, when I go into a situation, these decisions come because I'm not thinking, if I have a predetermined idea, then that's all I'm looking at,
If you have a predetermined idea, you're kind of following a very narrow channel.
Yeah.
If you have an idea, you're not going to be open to other ideas. So you're right. Better put that idea away and have a blank slate. I mean, what that reminds me of Bernard Tschumi. He's quite a well-known architect. And he was asked, where do you get your design ideas? And he said, after a hard day's work, on the weekend I go to my summer house and I absolutely take everything out of my mind. My mind becomes a blank slate. And when I go back to work on Monday, there it is, waiting to be filled, and I get all kinds of ideas. Yeah. So it's...
Well, I used to do that. When I used to go to sketch class when I was a lot younger, whenever I had a problem, I always felt like as I get involved in the sketching, that the answer is going to come to me, because my mind was diverted off the problem, but to something that I had to pay detailed attention to, but not that specific thing.
In other words, your conscious mind was involved with something, and you had something else to do, so you had no other choice but to bring in your subconscious to do it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah.
What about somebody who's had a pattern of not successful things, and it seems to be they keep repeating either meeting the wrong person or constantly getting fired from jobs or whatever? They keep making the same mistake. Is there a way that is that something that I always thought the subconscious might be doing something to trip them up? How does that?
I think that
how does a person use the subconscious
in other words,
to get out of a pattern that's negative?
You have a routine which is not good for you, and you have to break it. And I think the best way to break it is, and I'll describe what Ted did, because he was mired down in a very unhappy situation. He said, I'm taking a vacation, but I'm not going to go to a resort and play golf and tennis. I'm going to do something that's very challenging. It's going to be learning something new. He went to Germany, didn't know one word of German, and lived with a German family. Here he was with a family. They couldn't communicate at first. And he was there a year. He learned to speak German. He said he got an entirely different point of view. He kept his original viewpoints, but he added to it. And it was one, he said, that was subconsciously oriented. And that changed his life. So I think sometimes you have to make a radical change in your life. And, when you do that, your subconscious says, look, he or she, they're really trying. Because remember, your subconscious is helping you out, but your subconscious is not living your life. Your conscious brain is what's playing out your life. And your subconscious is sitting there as an observer, watching what's happening to you. That means your subconscious can be objective. It's not mired down in all sorts of situations that don't turn out right. So it's your conscious mind that feels jealousy, hate, resentment, anxiety. Your subconscious is in a very good position, as I said, like a spectator sitting in an audience watching a play. That's your subconscious.
Is that kind of like when you meditate, you have the visitor who's watching your thoughts, and you have that distance when you let your thoughts go, that there's somebody else there. I guess that would be the subconscious.
I think that's true. That's the advantage of meditate. It takes you out of your conscious sick self.
Yeah.
and allowing your subconscious to intervene and make your life better.
Can somebody who change their personality with using the subconscious, if their personality is not working for them or whatever
there's always been this argument: can we change ourselves? Is self-transformation possible? And the pioneering psychologist said yes, because the conscious brain evolved out of the subconscious, and it's continuing to evolve. And there are changes. Madeline, who changed her career and is now happy, you could say that had to involve some change in her personality. But now there's an extreme change, and that is discarding your old self and replacing it with a new self. Now let me give you an example of that. A young man, Frenchman, by the name of Edward Jenner, timid, shy, always giving things to other people and not thinking of himself. He wanted to be an architect. And he didn't want to be just any architect. He wanted to be a famous architect. So he decided, again, he was going to cast aside his self and get a new one. The first thing he did was change his name from Edward Jenner to Le Corbusier, who I'm sure you've heard of, one of the founders of modern architecture. And when he did that, he became tough, strong mentally, and even unscrupulous, and thereby succeeding in a way that even he probably couldn't have imagined.
So he sort of freed himself from the routine of how his personality had functioned.
Now he deliberately acquired another self.
Yeah.
And sometimes it can happen, for instance, after a near-fatal illness, after some devastating experience. But it's always accompanied by a strong idea, which the possessor, who's going to acquire this new self, feels so strongly about it, they think of it as the ultimate truth. They have to give up everything they've had and start anew in order to express this truth.
But I think that's always probably there. It's just that that aspect of themselves has been neglected, you know, a softer aspect sometimes, or whatever it is that.
Yeah, it's
changes
there,
it, yeah.
and it's waiting to be triggered so that it can express itself.
Because we had one, there was one show, I didn't do this, but there was a singer who taught singing, and she would tell the people in her class that they had to be a different personality, wear a different kind of dress. If they were timid, they'd have to wear a red, hot, sexy dress. And their singing completely changed when they put the costume on. This whole other aspect of themselves popped out. So it's kind of similar.
It gave them self-confidence to make that change.
Right.
Yeah. Well, let me tell you another story, which is, again, someone who became another self, and she kind of just fell into this. It was not planned the way Le Corbusier planned his. Alicia, a very bright young woman, after she finished college with knowledge of 7 languages, she could speak them all, got a job selling jet planes. This is the creme de la creme of sales jobs. And, you know, she had to be pretty bright to understand how a jet plane works. And she traveled all over the world, making a fortune. And then she was sent to Brazil, to Sao Paulo. And she wrote to her friends, "I've come home." What happened in Sao Paulo is she discovered, this African-American girl, she discovered the Mukumba religion. It was an African religion which the slaves brought to the New World. And a lot of it involved healing with herbs, and she became a healer. And she happily gave up the rich life, selling jets.
Wow.
And
yeah,
one of her friends visited her, and she said, as we walked down the streets of Sao Paulo, people got off the sidewalk in respect for her great healing powers. That was bowing down to her, this wonderful healer that she had become. Yeah.
That kind of reminds me of how indigenous peoples sometimes use drugs to sort of get into the subconscious, like to lose their inhibitions and find out the answers to their questions, you know.
That's interesting, because that's the physiological aspect, isn't it? They often, if there was a big decision in the tribe to be made, how to fight a war against the enemy, how to choose a new chieftain, how to build a totem pole, which of course was a religious icon or symbol, they would either fast, go into the desert and fast for a few days, even a few weeks, or they would chew on a hallucinogenic leaf, go into a trance, and that information just poured forth. Yeah.
Is the same thing, I'm going to go a little bit into dreams, of when you have dreams, you know, in analyzing, sometimes dreams can sort of do a similar thing, can't they, to sort of say, I don't know why I dreamt about moving to Montana, but
yes.
I keep dreaming the same dream every time. I've read a story about that once, and then the person went to Montana and they found exactly the right thing that they wanted, that was right for them to do.
I think you're right. Dreams can clue you in as to what you should do with your life. That's right. And of course, dreams perform obviously different functions for different people. That's a subconscious state. And I'm thinking of the lucid dreamer. I mean, we all are at some point aware of some of our dreams. We don't realize we're dreaming, but we're taking part in the dream. We're often participants in the dream. But there are some people who know they're dreaming, and those people can often manipulate the plots of their dreams. And this gives them great confidence in their waking life.
This is a fantastic book. I can't wait to read it. And
I really think it's the best book I've ever written, and I know you're going to enjoy it.
I loved your other one. Yes, thank you.
Well, thanks for having me. It's been fun.
If you think about your subconscious, the more that you know, the more that it becomes available to you. And Felicia's book is one of those ways to get to find out a lot more about your subconscious and how it can help you in your life and in your enjoyment of life. See you next time.